absolutely. Well, I don't know if you've ever had this moment, but when you're in a job that just doesn't fit you and it just feels like you're just so much of a square peg in a round hole. And it's hard when it really like so much of your life is dedicated to work. And when you know that you're meant for something else and you're stuck in it, it's really just so frustrating. I knew that I wanted to write. I knew that I loved having my own business, but
welcome to Scratch Your Own Itch podcast, the show about the things we think about but don't ever talk about. My name's Logan Tyler Nelson, and I'm your host. These conversations are about creating a life worth living, with a focus on sharing stories about battles in our heads. Topics range from depression, addiction, self-doubt, past traumas, and everyday compulsive thinking. And my hope is that this show will just shed some light on anyone in the dark that feels like they're alone in their daily struggles. Please take note that this show is not meant to be a replacement for professional diagnosis or professional therapy. I am not a counselor or a therapist. Hey guys, get ready to scratch your copywriting itch. My guest today is Katie Momo. And if you're wondering who Katie Momo is, then you've been missing out on life, honestly. Katie Momo is a copywriting pro. She's a sales copywriter who loves helping you share your message. Not just any message, but a message that is personally yours and no one else's. She feels obligated to say she's been behind six-figure launches, even though she personally feels a bit douchey saying it. But sometimes we all need that shot of pretentious authorization in order for people to open up their ears and listen up. Therefore, she recognizes it shows social proof to show she knows a thing or two about making you money. When she's not writing, she loves hunting down the perfect latte, participating in marathons, HGTV marathons, not the other marathons. She's super funny, which means she's never had a depressive moment, right? Not true. Katie has gone through some trying times herself, and today we're going to discuss her rock bottom moments and also how someone can use the power of words to influence and impact others. So, without any more blubber from me, let's introduce the real star of the show, Katie Supergirl Momo. Thanks for coming on Scratch Your Own Itch.
oh, thank you so much for having me. That is amazing introduction, by the way. You know, when like somebody sort of like gives snapshots of your life, you're like, oh, that person sounds really cool. I wonder who that is. And then you're like, oh, wait a second, that's me.
Yep, that is you, and I have the pleasure of having you on today. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Logan. It's awesome to be here.
Since you're the storyteller that you are, a storyteller at heart, at least, I'd love to kind of get into what makes you you, and I'd like to start by you sharing that story and maybe the worst moments in your life which you felt like you lost faith and nearly quit everything. If you don't mind sharing that part of your life with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know if you've ever had this moment, but when you're in a job that just doesn't fit you and it just feels like you're just so much of a square peg in a round hole. And it's hard when it really like so much of your life is dedicated to work. And when you know that you're meant for something else and you're stuck in it, it's really just so frustrating. I knew that I wanted to write. I knew that I loved having my own business. But at the time, I was working a job that was like, they were long days. Like by the time I would leave home and get home, it was like 12 hours. So it was just so exhausting. And I was just, when you're just so tired, you're like, how can I go on? Because I was working on starting my business at night, during lunch, sometimes even in the morning. So I just knew that like I had to keep going in order to get out of it. But man, there were some days where I just felt like, am I crazy? Like, do I have what it takes to own my own business and get out of this hole? Because Like I was just so not in a position where I felt like I was fulfilling my destiny or living up to, what I could really bring to the world. And that's just like a hard place to be in, I think, when you realize that there's potential that you're leaving on the table, but you're not really sure how to play with the cards yet. Um, that was really hard, and it took some real gumption to keep going through it. And um, I spent a lot of time on my lunch breaks walking around in the parking lot of all places because it's the only place I could sort of like be by myself, and I would listen to podcasts about personal development and try and see how I could apply that in my own life to finally get ahead and get out of that rock that I felt stuck under. So if anyone has felt that way, trust me, I've been right there with you. I've walked that same road, and I can tell you it's really good on the other side, but you just got to keep going through it first.
So what kind of thoughts would you have while you're like walking around just alone? And because I know I've been there, and I know I've been like, just like I felt weird too. Like, what am I doing anymore? Like I'm just not sure on what I want to do with this business, and how do I even start it, and how do I really want to be something in life. I really want to make an impact. I mean, did you have that kind of thought?
Oh, I definitely did. And I felt like I was leading a double life. Like there was the people at work who knew me one way, and then there was the people, close in my life, or the people that, I worked with as clients who saw me in a completely different way. So I felt like I was really leading two versions of my life, which is hard. It's hard to manage two different personal or not I would not personalities, but two different expectations of your life at the same time. And that's really stressful. And I just really felt like, there was just so much more out there for me that I didn't know how to make that happen. And it's frustrating. It just feels like, you have to put on a different mask every time you walk into the office to be like, oh no, now I'm this person. And then finally at the end of the day you can take it off and be yourself again. And that's just it's exhausting to try and play that role when you know that that's not what you're meant to be doing.
Totally, totally, totally. Yes. I've said this before that the reason why I think a lot of people feel exhausted and tired is because they just honestly, I'm going to be straight up, they're pretending to be someone that they're not.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah,
like that's a
absolutely.
huge indicator, and I feel like you went through it, that finally you're like, okay, I can't keep pretending. And what kind of, let's get kind of more detailed. What kind of job was it that you were working that you hated? If you don't mind going into that, just to get a
Yeah.
clearer
So it's
picture.
a bizarre position, which, parts of it I actually really loved. It was just sort of, and I know that this is like typical, it's sort of the atmosphere around it and some of the other expectations, but it was kind of crazy. So we did social media for the airport, and we also did emergency response. So what was really funny is that like, you're managing an actual like event. Like it could be anything from the baggage system failing and thousands of bags lying on the floor, don't know what goes where, or an aircraft coming in with only one engine operating, while at the same time dealing with things on the very public side, like someone can't find a bathroom, they're tweeting like 10,000 times being like, where's the bathroom? Or they're angry because they could only find a Tim Hortons coffee shop and they wanted a Starbucks. So there was just a lot of different competing things in that role, which made it pretty stressful. Like I saw some people just, this sometimes the stress would really get to them. Luckily, I'd been there long enough that I'd learned how to manage it. But in the beginning of that role, it was definitely a learning curve, understanding how to balance that kind of level of anxiety and stress and pressure. But in the end, I think it was actually good training for me because I learned how to sort of relax under pressure and perform. Um, but ultimately, it came down to that it's not the right role for me. And it's even though I really liked parts of it, it wasn't going to be the thing that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And especially, I think it's something like 80% of people, they leave because of management and sort of the external forces around it. And that was definitely a factor on my part. When you're dealing with, 10, we had 10 different managers that had completely different expectations. So you're constantly trying to chase your tail, wondering what you're supposed to be doing. And I don't know if you've ever felt that, but man, is that ever exhausting. Like you just feel like, you did what you were told to yesterday, and then you felt like you're failing because that person wasn't happy with you. And it was just miserable to try and catch up with that. Like it's really, really exhausting to try and make people happy when they have completely different versions of how something should be done. So
Yeah, some
that's pretty hard.
yo, absolutely. Sometimes you just yeah, I'm sure I'm sure there's someone that resonates with this. I resonate with this where you're just working with people that no matter what, they're just not happy with anything you do.
Yes.
And
Oh,
and
so annoying.
yeah, and it's so hard too because you do bring your strengths, but I'm sorry, I'm not perfect. Like I probably have areas where I need growth. I also probably have areas where like straight up like this is not what I also want to do for the rest of my life. And so I'm not going to I'm not going to slave away and work on this project that I just don't believe fully in, and I'm sorry. And so just I guess that's another reason why I love the ability to just be honest, which is really hard to do because I think a lot of us do want to kind of like cut around the corners. And like this podcast for me has just been a way to be honest with people and be like, yeah, I'm really down and depressed about my life right now. Like, and I have everything I've ever wanted. And still, why is someone depressed? And so I want to ask that question to you now that you're finally doing this work that you love doing with clients and having your own copywriting blog. Do you still have moments of despair and still like go, oh, I'm kind of down and I don't know why?
I think everyone has moments of where they feel lost and down. I mean, I'm pretty happy all the time. I mean, I love what I do. I'm so lucky, and it was absolutely worth pushing through the insane frustration to get here. But I think part of it comes from sort of having goals that you meet. Like, when you're working towards a goal, there's something so satisfying about it. Like, you know where you're going, you know what you're doing, and you're just like going for it, doing everything that you can to meet it. And it's weird when you actually accomplish something and you realize like that it's no longer a challenge anymore and you sort of feel adrift. And you need to like constantly be setting new goals and new targets to go for, because I think there was this book, I'm pretty sure it was by Chris Gillibo, where it's talking about it's not the pursuit of happiness, but it's the happiness of pursuit, where you're happiest when you're actually working towards something. If you've accomplished everything you want to, that's sort of the dangerous point where you're like, what now? Like you don't have anything that really sort of motivates you to get up and do your thing. And I think that has been an odd sensation where you're like, oh, I've kind of accomplished like all of these goals. What's my next move? And having to sort of realize that there's always going to be that gap of where you're like, okay, I need to set a new goal, or otherwise I don't have something to aim for. And you always need to be working towards something. And I find that there's just a huge amount of satisfaction when you set a goal and start like really cranking towards it, and you see the momentum that you get. That is super, super satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely. I so agree. Um, I think that that's actually a part of the reason why people lose purpose and lose love for life, right? Is when you finally achieve that thing and you go, all right, well, like what's next? And
Yeah.
and then you're in that like transition point where you used to have that super clear vision of what you wanted to do, and then you got it, and then now it's like what's not? It's like the kid who got the marshmallow, like they've already eaten all the comfort foods that they've wanted, and now they've stuffed themselves, and now they just all they're thinking about is being empty again because they're filled with marshmallows. I know that's a stupid analogy, but you know,
It's totally right,
it
though.
is the truth. Like it is the truth. So I think we got to set it up in a way where we're always sort of hungry. We just can't get somewhere and then go like, okay, I don't know what to do next. But I think by setting up, that's why I believe in enormous goals, because when you do have that enormous goal in your head, then you, like even something that you know is not even achievable, but you're tricking yourself to going, I'm at least going to go for it. Is there any huge, enormous goal that Katie Momo has where she just kind of has to go for it and keep herself hungry?
I'm always sort of reevaluating, which now I've sort of learned to do. And I'm not exactly sure what the next move is, but I would like to do something like giving back somehow. I'm not really sure how that comes to be, but I mean, right now I'm working with a company that is just incredible. Like, wow, we give so much, and we're just starting on a new fundraiser to raise money for people who've lost everything in the hurricanes that happened this season. And I mean, wow, that just like knowing the impact is going to make, it's just like it sets up a whole new fire in me that like it's hard to fulfill from something else. So I don't know exactly what it's going to be yet. I've been thinking about it the past couple of days, how I want to, give back in a bigger way. Like I'm always donating, but it would be nice to have like sort of some clear mission to go for. So that's that's a new challenge for me that I'm setting up, which I'm not sure what the answer is, but it's fun to explore different options.
I'm so happy to hear that you at least donate, and I say that because I think people and I myself get stuck in this trap that you've got to donate $1 million before you're good enough to tell yourself that, you're a good person. But that's not true. Like I always try to just round up whenever I'm at the gas station for any donation that they have available at the time. Like the other day I was at the gas station and there was a heart uh, program that you could just round up, and I was like, yeah, round up and round up $1 more. Like even though it's only $1.68, like it's going a long way, and people need to realize that like pat yourself on the back for just that. Like everyone is on an elevator, just in different levels. So yeah.
It's so true. And I think that like once you sort of get in the habit of it, it becomes addicting in a way because you realize, it doesn't take much for most people to really have what they want. I mean, of course there's going to be people that say that they won't be satisfied until they get millions and millions of dollars, and maybe that's true. But for a lot of people, most of us just want to be comfortable, and at a certain point a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think it's kind of nice to have a mission in mind that you can, go back to and use as a reason, like a grounding reason as a why to help spread that positivity around, because there's really nothing like seeing people go forward in life and then knowing that you help them accomplish that. And it's really a gift that other people that, most people don't get the opportunity to have. So sometimes you have to look for those chances. Once you start doing it, it's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, it feels so good too to know that you just helped out even a little bit. I
It
know
does.
I've while doing research on you, because well, that sounds really weird. Uh,
That's okay.
while looking you up and whatnot, I did listen to one of your interviews in which you talked about how like the most satisfying part of your job was actually being able to help someone else with their side hustle, or being able to actually work at a job that they created, that they set up. So I kind of want to transition into that, if you don't mind, and talk about what you do as a copywriter and how you help other people get better at copywriting so they can work from basically anywhere in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out by doing a lot of client work, which I just love doing. I really specialize in helping people grow their online programs, so their online memberships, the online courses. And recently, one of my major clients, we actually decided to go all in together. So now I work exclusively with them. But what is so fun is I get to work with their clients as well. So they're everyone who specializes in creating online memberships, and I love learning. Like I love online programs because I'm just a learning junkie, and I love it from the business side too because it helps people share the information about what they absolutely love doing in a way that feels really good to them. Like, just like you said, they can work from everywhere in the world. You know, if you're a mom and you have kids, you can still have your online business and not have to sacrifice going to work and leaving your kids and not being able to see them for 10 or 12 hours a day. And, you know, it's something that it really fulfills a whole bunch of passions of mine of small business, being able to have the lifestyle that you want, and working with companies that do end up actually donating a lot as well. Like that's really so impactful for me to be able to help them grow their businesses. So it's sort of like, you know, it's the ripple effect, right? Like you help one business and you help all the people that they were helping, and it just sort of goes out and out. So it's really amazing to see how, you know, maybe if you just help that one person, everyone in their network benefits. And it's pretty crazy when you think of it that way, but that's how it works, and it's so powerful.
That is that's so cool. Could you kind of break it down and like even maybe give us an example of how you helped someone recently with their business and what she said or what he said and what you said and the story behind that?
Yeah, sure. So let me think of one of my clients that I took on before going exclusive. Okay. So there's a lady, she's just fantastic. And she actually has a course that she helps families communicate better. So she went to Duke, she went to Harvard. She's incredible. She's done like some of the most original, like in the 90s surveys about how to like understand people, like all of the psychological surveys that you see now, which are so common. She was like the originator of this. So she took all of what she knows about like family mediation, family psychology, and put it into a course to help people actually communicate better just in the micro level. So instead of having, you know, your kid come home and be like, yeah, everything's fine and slam the door and you don't actually understand what's going on in their head, she teaches them how to actually relate to each other and build stronger families, because I think that that's so important, especially now because everyone is so busy. I think communication, even though we're plugged in all the time, is kind of goes by the wayside. And I think that that can really help a lot of people in so many areas of their life. And being able to help her spread her message, I know impacted thousands and thousands of families. So it's just incredible when you work with one person, you're able to see the transition and like see the testimonials that come in from people who are like, oh, you know, I finally got my kid to open up to me. I didn't even know that, you know, he was facing this problem in school, but it wasn't until I used your methods that I was able to connect with him and see what his problem is, see what he actually wants out of it, and knowing, having the tools to actually help him. So stuff like that, I think, is so incredible when you know that you're actually making a difference in these people's lives, especially when, you know, they're dealing with their children, and those children are probably learning how their parents taught them. So that will happen, you know, in a few generations when they have their own kids, they'll probably pass on that same information. So I think it's really cool when you look at the long view of what your work does.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. I'm talking to just you right now. Have you ever tried to start a creation like a podcast? Or maybe it was a YouTube channel. And you're just really having a hard time creating content because you just don't know where to go. Or maybe you need permission to just consistently keep going. Well, I want to let you know you're not alone. For people like you, I created a Facebook group called Scratch Your Own Itch, creating a life worth living. Because I believe that it's creation that keeps us going. And sometimes we just need permission, or sometimes we just need someone to keep us on track. Well, this is what this Facebook group is for. So please have it over to scratch your own itch, creating a life worth living. And if you are having a hard time finding it, you don't have to pull over the car. You can actually look in the show notes. I'll post the URL there, as well as if you need to find me, just send me an email, logan@logantylernelson.com. Again, that's logan@logantylernelson.com. Just send me an email, and I'll invite you into the group. This is a total free group. Free. 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 So don't wait another second. All right, you can wait another second. But honestly, I'd love to help you meet your creative goals. So head over to Scratching Your Own Itch, creating a life worth living. Because I know you have that deep curiosity of what it would be like to have your own podcast or YouTube channel. But sometimes you're just running out of ideas, or you just need that extra push to keep you going. Well, back to my interview. It's kind of wild too. We're transitioning that. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too far into the future, but I see it not as like kids actually being like, okay, okay, you got to get really good grades. You got to go to elementary school. You got to get good grades in middle school. Got to get good grades in high school, and then go to college, and then work for a really nice company. But now it's like because of technology and this technological advancement, I feel like more parents are trying to teach their kids how to be creative, and being creative allows someone to be really indispensable, because once they're indispensable, then they have more security, right? Like, and I think that's even why I'm not like scared of AI or anything, just because I know that I'll always be creative. How do you tap into your creative genius? Like when you start doing a copy blog, can you just give us the definition too for those people that don't know what copywriting is? Like, what is copywriting? What does that
Sure.
entail?
Yeah, so copywriting is typically words that are written to sell something, or some people just say that have an end goal in mind. So, for example, if you have a business and you're trying to build an email list, so you have a bunch of customers that you could potentially sell to in the future, sometimes the goal is simply to get a subscriber, to get someone to input their information. Or sometimes the goal could be to get somebody to buy a program. So really, it's writing that is designed with some sort of goal in mind. And within that, there's all sorts of little pockets and areas of specialty. So some people focus on content. So all they want to do is write blogs and help share that information and sort of build that brand up. Or I tend to specialize more on the sales copy side because I love sales psychology. I worked in sales for a number of years, so I love bringing that aspect into it and helping people realize, how this product can truly help make their lives better and help them accomplish the goals that they want faster.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So, what would be a typical way for you to get inside your sort of, I think, because we all have those little triggers that we use to get in our zone of genius. What are those triggers for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends on what I'm working on, and depends on sort of the voice that I need. But if I need to get creative, I love just sometimes throwing on music and dancing around. I find that's always a surefire way to sort of get me into like a good mood where I feel like creative, and all the creative juices start flowing. And I think that's the same with like any exercise, really. Like if I exercise before I write, it's amazing what I can come up with. And I think sometimes just surrounding yourself with other influences that really inspire you. Like, I love reading books that like comedy that makes me laugh. I love watching, funny sitcoms and, creating a swipe file of different things that you hear that you're like, oh, yeah, that could be funny, or like different thoughts, and just creating a huge bank of ideas, because that way you have things to go back to when you're ready to use them, and you're not just starting from scratch and looking at the blank page, which is probably the most dangerous thing any writer could ever do. If you create those bank of ideas, and I mean, they can be anywhere. You could overhear something at a coffee shop, or you could be at a play and think like, oh, that's a really great line. Like, I would love to sort of, rework it into something that I'm doing and see it from that way. So I love sort of taking inspiration from all different things and collecting them so that way I can go back to it when I need to.
Yeah, I think it's really actually very much a danger when you start with a white canvas instead of having something on the canvas. Um,
Yes,
and and
totally.
like you said, you take from conversations, or you take from your little idea bank, or what'd you call it? You have is it an app?
Actually, I have just my notes on my iPhone, which is like indispensable to me if I'm just sort of jotting something down quickly. And then I'll put it into like a Google Doc, which is more structured. But sometimes, if you're on the go, you don't have time to like wait for the app to load or whatever. So I just throw it into notes and then I can sort it out later. So that way I have something better to go back to.
Katie, you and I are exactly the same. People are like on this Evernote thing, and they're using Scrivener. I'm like, why don't you just use notes that come with
Ah,
your phone? Like, you can set up little
awesome.
you can set up your own title for the notes that you want. Like, to me it just makes way more sense to use this instead of
I know. And
Evernote.
it's so
Where
fast. Like you don't want to lose
yeah.
something, right? Like you don't want to forget it. So you're like, okay, just open it up and you're good to go. And I love dictating on it as well. Like it's amazing what comes out when you just speak it as opposed to trying to write it. So that's another hack that I love using.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, that's a great one. Because let's face it, like, we're not all writers, and sometimes we have to hire ghostwriters to do our work because we're really good at auditory learning. And I think because you may be an auditory learner, you may also be a very vocal sort of creator, meaning like you love to hear your voice and you love to sort of like think things through, not with just a paper and pen, but to be outward with it and be animated. Like when I'm talking right now, I feel like I'm moving my arms around right now, like a lot, and I'm moving my body a lot. Like, if you're a mover, you might be someone who's not really good at sitting down at a desk and being like, okay, now I need to create, because I set in my head that I was going to create for 20 minutes and I was going to write this thing. Are there any other things that you may do that sort of trick you into writing something when you know you have a deadline? Do you set a timer, or do you do any of that stuff?
You kind of touched on it when you said when you're moving around. I actually do a lot of dictation. So sometimes I'll just go for a walk and grab my phone and dictate, and I get fantastic ideas when I'm doing that because, the endorphins are going. So it's incredible the ideas that you can come up with really, really quickly when you're moving around. And just like you said, how, when you read something and it sounds like it's written versus when you read something that sounds like it was spoken, those are two completely different styles of writing. And what's funny is that copywriting is very much more the spoken version of writing, which is completely, quote unquote, wrong when it comes to like what we learn in school. But the reason why it works so well is because it really triggers something in your brain in that it feels like somebody is there talking to you. It feels like they're in the room. It's, doesn't feel like it was formally written stiffly, like I've got 20 minutes to write, must write now. And that is one reason why it works so well. And I can't remember the university that did a big study on it, but they showed that conversational writing is just so much more effective for getting your message across because speech comes so much more naturally to people than writing does. Children learn to speak at a much younger age than they would ever learn to write. So I think it's quite amazing the psychology behind it, but it's totally true. You don't need to box yourself in and think like, oh, if I write, I have to write, because you can quote unquote write in so many different ways, whether you record a video and you have it transcribed, or you dictate, or just even recording an audio and have that transcribed. There's so many ways that you can create that you don't have to stick yourself in a box in order to define that.
That is so huge. Thank you for talking about that, because I know for me, like I've been like, yeah, I'm a really good writer, and then I'll have people read it that are the wrong forms of judgment. It would be like a tutor from school, or it would be a tutor for my teacher for my English class, and they'd be like, well, this kind of sounds bad. Like this is definitely a run-on sentence.
Yes.
And when I read other people's blogs that I actually like enjoy reading, and hey, you know it too. You know you read those blogs where they're just so blunt and they're so themselves, and it sounds like exactly that. When you're reading it, you're like, I'm just being spoken to, like an authentic person. Like I'm actually here, hearing the words instead of like reading, some incredible. And I don't know who's a writer that writes really like well in prose. I guess anybody that's written before the ages of 1950. Let's just say that.
Yes, exactly. The classics.
The classics, all the classics. Like, but if you read those things, like they're beautifully connected sentences, but I don't think that perfection is going to save you from your depression. I think perfection will actually get you anxiety about trying to be perfect. It'll get you anxiety about trying to be someone that you're not. When the place
Totally.
that you are at is fine, and I think that what you talk about right that like right now and there and then could be a little bit of guys, like just take action. Like I hope that motivates you to kind of scratch your own itch if you ever want to be a copywriter to kind of go down that road. I would love to hear what a day is like in Katie Momo's life. Like what does she do on an average day?
Sure. I always start out and then exercise. It's like always my first thing. I don't exercise very long, but I am a huge believer that it sets the tone for your day and it really puts you in the right mindset. And then I eat and then I usually start writing because by then I've normally like got a whole bunch of great ideas in my mind about what I want to do. And what I love doing is setting up, like, I know what I'll work on the next day. So, when you're able to tap into the power of your brain and it's able to work on something all night, and by the morning, you have such great ideas about what you want to do. It's amazing, as opposed to just, starting your day and be like, oh, what am I going to do now? That's not working to your creative advantage. I think it's so important to think about what you're going to do the next day and just stop thinking about it before you go to bed and let your brain do its thing because, wow, it is the most powerful tool you can have. And if you can get it working for you, you can make massive strides. And basically, once I start writing, I'm normally pretty good for a couple hours to pump something out, which I just love doing, that feeling of like accomplishing something. And I'll take a break and do some yoga and have some lunch. And then I'm normally good to go back and work for another little bit. Maybe I'll go for a walk in the afternoon and, record things, like I said. And maybe I'll connect with the team, do a video chat or something like that. But yeah, most of my day is pretty relaxed like that, which is fun. Like you just have so much creative space when you're able to give yourself the freedom in order to just sort of explore things and play around. And it's really incredible what you come out with at the end of the day.
What do you wish you kind of knew about the I guess because you're working for yourself. What do you wish you knew about working for yourself before you started?
Well, here's the funny thing is I'm actually not working for myself anymore. I had my own business. And then I was given one of my clients who is just amazing, just love them. They approached me a few months ago and said, like, hey, like we have all of these projects we want to do. Like we love working with you. Would you be interested in coming full time? And at first I was like, I don't want to work for anyone else. I want to work for myself. And then when I looked at everything, I realized I love these people. Man, they're just absolutely world class in everything. And we get along so well. And they have so much more reach than I do on my own. And it's funny when you think the way that you're going to accomplish something isn't exactly the way that you're given an opportunity and you're not sure if it's right, but when you look at it you realize it actually helps you accomplish what you want to faster and easier than you thought that it would originally be. So, yeah, I work remotely for this amazing company, and it's just like the perfect fit. I'm able to do all my own stuff. We've got some big projects planned, some that originated with them, some that originated with me. And yeah, it's really cool when you find people that you just click with and help you move forward so much faster than you ever possibly thought you could.
That is so, so, so cool. And I'm all right, guys. I know you're probably thinking right now, like, this is supposed to be a mental health podcast. And that's just like, this girl seems like she has the perfect life, right? And it does sound like that. But there are a lot of things that she had to go through to get to that. And so if you're in a place right now where you're like thinking about, just like I am feeling even more down because this person's life just sounds great. Like,
Oh my
I
gosh,
don't,
it's not like
it,
that.
and yeah, it's not, exactly. And so I kind of want to get into that part of just sharing with us when things are hard. Like, what do you do to take yourself out of that? Like, or when you probably have a crazy hard time with just going to the store and like being able to not do your regular routine, because now that you have a routine, I mean, is it scary to like go on trips and stuff like that? Like, let's kind of hear about the human part of it.
I always work really hard on my mindset. Like people think like, "Oh, you're happy all the time." And I'm like, "No, I actually work on it." And I think that there's this weird perception that people think like everyone just wakes up and they're naturally happy. And I'm like, "No, like it act like you have to literally train your brain. Like it's work. It takes effort, but it's the best payoff you could ever have. Like, wow, it's amazing. And one thing that I love doing, like when I'm just feeling dumpy, is my friend calls it a rash of gratitude, where you just go through everything and you just think about every silly little thing that you're thankful for in your life, even just like the silliest things, like, it's a beautiful sunshiny day. Oh, I'm happy to see that card that my friend gave me. I love that crystal that I got. I think it's really beautiful. I really love that lamp. I'm so happy I got that lamp. And just go through and just obsessively break down everything that you're grateful for in your life, whether, from the small things to the big things, like the relationships, your parents, your spouse, whoever. And that can rip you out of a funk just about faster than anything I know. It's crazy when you look around at everything and like really get into it, not just like on the surface level, but like feel it, like I don't know, emotionally connect to whatever you're thinking about. That can really change my mindset really quickly. And I think it's important to do that sort of as an everyday practice. Have you ever heard of the 5 minute journal?
Yeah, love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
it's really good. So I don't, if anyone has ever used it before, or if you haven't, I think it's definitely worth checking out. So it's a journal that you do, but it's not like a long-winded journal. It's like just a couple minutes in the morning, just a couple minutes in the evening, and it sort of sets your intention for the day and helps you. It actually talks about gratitude as well because it's shown that that really helps you. Um, it's such an amazing tool that you can go through and you can put it on your phone if you want to get the app, or you can just buy the book itself. That's one way that I found is really helpful. But yeah, like literally training your brain. Like I do so much personal development, like whether I get up and I read a book for a little bit to sort of get me in the right mindset. Um, Sometimes even just like listening to like calm music or something is really helpful to relax and chill out. I don't know if this actually works, but I just got an app for called Relax Melodies, and it has like, I think it's called binaural beats. So apparently that's supposed to be really helpful, but I haven't really used it enough to say. But yeah, I mean, it's not something that I think that a lot of us expect to be naturally happy, but it is something that it takes work to develop it as a habit, and it takes work to maintain it. It's not like, it's the same thing if you go to the gym for like, 10 minutes and then you're like, okay, I'm done now for life. It doesn't do anything. But if you sort of like, you know what I mean, right? It sounds ridiculous, but it's so true. But remembering to to maintain it and then doing these small little things throughout the day, whether it's, you know, grabbing your journal and writing things down that you're thankful for, or even like, they have cards or something like to sort of like, you can pull a card and it's like a nice quote or something like that. Simple things like that can really help keep you sort of aligned without sort of spinning off into like sad face Bill, which we've all been.
I agree so much on what you just said. I think that we live in a time now where sometimes you can't do great things, but I do believe that everyone can do little awesome things. And I think
Absolutely.
it's starting that is just by picking up habits like you were talking about, like 5 minute journals or picking up habits of gratitudes. And like that can be in a way like your way to be more creative. Like if you feel like you're not a creative person, like I think that's just BS, first of all, because documentation is creativity in its own. Like if you actually write down, just for 3 minutes or dictate it, like you were talking about, walking and talking into the phone and going like, I am grateful for my lungs pumping air today. Like, sweet. That's not the biggest thing in the world, but it's something that you can be very grateful for, right?
Yeah, it's pretty damn amazing when you think about it. Like when you literally think about it, you're like, I could have been a newt and instead I'm a person. Like that's a pretty good starting place.
Yeah, and I think it goes to show you that it works when I myself have experienced it. Like I know first and foremost, guys, I am tripping up on words today. I'm sorry.
I do it too.
Um,
It's all good.
See, it's human, right? But yeah, I mean, like I feel like I'll oftentimes go, I don't need to do that habit stuff. I don't need to go through my workout like to be happy today. And then I won't do it for a couple of days and I'll feel it. Like
Oh
I will
yeah.
feel it. Yeah. And I will realize it and I'll go, if I would have just taken 5 minutes, and that's all it takes is I think the trick of the timer is just if you can set the timer and it's harder to do it when you're first starting, but it's like a habit, like anything. Once you start doing it, you don't think about it anymore. You just do it. You just go, oh, whatever. I got to work out now. Okay, whatever. I got to do my gratitude journal. Okay, whatever. You know what? I'm feeling stressed out. Why am I feeling stressed out? Because I haven't been doing my habits lately.
It's
So,
so true.
um,
If I don't do it, that's when I notice it. But if I do it, things are really good. So, but yeah, when you the moment that you start slipping up in a few days, you're like you didn't exercise or you didn't, like exercise your mind or surround yourself with positivity. That's when things get ugly. And but it takes nothing to sort of get back into equilibrium.
yeah. Oh, totally. Absolutely. I kind of like to use your superpowers a little bit and go into how people can use certain trigger words or magic words to help their copywriting if they are working on. And let's say like they want to actually, become a freelancer and do copywriting on the side. What are some tricks and tips on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I think is important to keep in mind is that sometimes it's not even just about like the single words as it is so much about everything else behind it. Like when I think that in advertising today, a lot of people don't really see it from the customer's point of view. Like what are they going through? They're just so obsessed with like just feeling like they've checked the boxes, or sometimes you end up with creative teams where all they want to do is like win a creative award and they're not actually trying to like help people. They're trying to do like the fanciest new creative ideas when it comes to advertising. But I think empathy is one of the best things you could ever possibly have as a copywriter, and it helps everyone. I think empathy is one of the key things that you need really to connect with people at any stage in life. And being able to really understand the challenge that your customer is facing. Like dig deep. Like how does it make them like what are they Googling to try and solve this problem? But beyond that, like what does that represent and how does that make them feel? Like, for example, I was working with a lady and she helped busy moms work out. And what we found out is, like, after digging, it's not just about looking hot or feeling good on the surface or blah blah blah, but it goes so much deeper than that, because some moms felt like, if they didn't take care of themselves first, maybe that actually meant that they were a bad mother. And other people felt like if they weren't giving everything to their kids and weren't, sacrificing themselves, that made them a bad mother. And you need to understand and explain to them in the way that they hear it, about how what they need to know in order to make the next step, in order to take the decision. So I think that it's one of the most basic steps when it comes to copywriting, but truly deeply understanding your customer and their motivations and their fears, and also what they've already tried to do to solve this problem that haven't they haven't actually accomplished it yet. Like, maybe they've gone for this lady, maybe they've gone and signed up for those gyms that promise like a full workout in 30 minutes. Or maybe they've tried to sign up for like a YouTuber who created a program and they can work out at home, but that didn't work for them. And understanding and exploring those challenges that they've already gone through. So that way, that person completely understands that you know where they're at. You know the struggles that they've been through. You've known the trials and tribulations. And therefore, they can trust you to have a solution, because you're not giving up. You're not giving them the things that they've already tried before. You're saying, I hear you. You've tried this. It didn't work. And this is why this is going to help you. So I think being able to always keep the customer's end goal in mind, like what are they trying to accomplish and how can you help them do that, is just critical when it comes to copywriting. And it's less about one magic word, as it is about understanding and being able to reflect that back.
Hey, I just want to interrupt this show really quick. If this show is worth an hour of your time out of your day, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you found it inspirational or valuable, please head over to LoganTylerNelson.com and leave a few dollars or whatever you find affordable to help this show reach a bigger platform. It takes a lot of time to put it together, and it takes, unfortunately, dollars to make it happen. But all I'm trying to do is make people feel less alone and more comfortable with sharing the thoughts we all have and need to talk about more. Back to my interview. That is so cool. I think that's the key to it. It's not about trying to reinvent the wheel, but it's really just understanding where they're coming from and what their end goal is. And when you do, it's just like making money. Like whenever anybody goes, I want to make $1 million right now. I'm like, oh, okay, let's back up a little bit. Like, no, what kind of value are you gonna give to that person to actually create $1 million in your life? Or what kind of value you're gonna give this company that you're working for as a copywriter, the ability to persuade their customers to come in and actually be influenced enough to want to buy, rather than being like cold hard car salesman who just goes, all right, okay, you can't do 1900, I'll do 1500. It's just like, I guess, I don't know if I'm using a bad analogy. You can
No,
correct me
it's totally, absolutely
if I'm
right.
wrong. But no, cool. And I think that that's the problem, is we all we shoot ourselves in the foot when we try to skip steps instead of just breaking it down and really asking ourselves, like, why? Why? And maybe even, I don't know, do you use any like tricks, like you put up a sticky note on the top of your laptop corner and go like, okay, this is the overall goal, just so when you're actually in the writing, because I want to break that down. Like, why, when you set your fingers on the keyboard, like what is going to keep you thinking about that end goal in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely done the sticky note method. And what's funny, now that you say that, there's been a few people have tested this out on a few few studies that I was reading, and they say that sometimes if you print off a picture of that ideal customer and what they're trying to achieve and stick that in the corner of your monitor while you're writing, and you're just constantly looking at them and focusing on them and thinking like, how can you help them get to their goal? Apparently that can give better results as well. So I think, yeah, absolutely. I've done the sticky note method, and it is really helpful because it's easy when you have thousands of words to choose from and what exactly is going to help them. When you actually have something front and center that can keep you focused on what their goal is, it makes it a lot easier to know what you need to say in order to make that happen.
Ah, that's amazing. Guys, try that out. Really, like, the proof is in the pudding. The science is gone for it and actually proven that that helps a lot. And I think I would love to, actually, I know I would love to talk to you for hours and hours more. But I know that you have to get back to your life, and our listeners have to get back to their life. And I would like to maybe ask you a few sort of scratch the surface last questions, and then we'll leave you back to the life of Katie Momo while she's not talking to Logan Tyler Nelson on the Scratch Your Own Itch podcast.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, what's your worst habit that you're trying to break?
Oh, my worst habit? That's a good question. What is that? You should probably ask my husband. He can probably have a huge list of them. I'm
Uh-oh.
definitely I'm terrible at like leaving um like every piece of cutlery, like every cup, every dish, anything. Like there's just a trail of that following me wherever I go. It's just like you will never lose me because I'm always like discarding things that I've all of my plates and everything all over the house. So I think you'd be really happy if I somehow managed to put them in the dishwasher like they're supposed to. But yeah, like I'm like Hansel and Gretel. Like I have a safety line. You just follow the path of like old teacups and you'll find me.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, if you ever see a bunch of empty cups, just go Katie Momo somewhere around here.
I have
All right,
I have
where is
three
she?
right
Where is
beside
she?
me.
Hey, I'm so happy you're no, seriously, you are being authentic. Whether I know you're laughing about it right now, but some people are really ashamed by that because like you're a little high maintenance, let's say, on the cup holding area, and that's
Maybe.
okay.
Yeah.
Like that's totally cool. I'm happy that you're lighthearted about it and you can laugh at it. And I think that's where we get down on ourselves when we take life a little bit too seriously and go like, okay, I have this baggage and I'm always high maintenance, and just go flip it around and make fun of it. Like I love that you do that just now. I have to take note of that. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh,
I
my
just
husband,
realized
he'll be like, "Oh, are you going somewhere? What about your plate?" And I'm like, "Oh, don't worry about my plate. It's not going anywhere."
it.
Like it's not
I
like a
know.
dog. It's not going to get lost. It's just going to stay there until the end of time.
I love it. I love it. I want to ask you if you could take anybody, living or dead, in any time of history and sit them down in a chair, who would it be and what question would you want to ask them?
Oh my gosh, that's hard. There's so many interesting people.
I
Um,
know.
oh, that's really hard. It's like part of me wants to say Richard Branson, but then I also would love to talk to Walt Disney and just see how he had that whole vision to make everything come together because it's pretty crazy that like the vision that that man had and how he brought it to life. I mean, no matter how you feel about Disney today and like its existing corporation, I think like it came from such like such humble beginnings, especially because I don't know if you know anything about his story, but he was beaten down. Like he lost everything multiple times. He had like, you know, legal stuff sort of ripped away all of his previous work. Like talk about somebody who had to build himself up from nothing time and time again to create something that like, you know, has a lasting impact around the world. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, I would love to know how he was able to sort of envision it all because it just seems so momentous what he accomplished in one lifetime.
It's so crazy. I just listened. Well, I read an article slash listened to it because I found this new way of having your iPhone actually talk to you while you read an article. Like you'll actually like if you pull up an article on Huffington Post, for example, I listened to this article being read to me in which it was titled "Tortured Artist," and it talked about how Walt Disney he created um, Bugs Bunny because he was upset with how they fired him at a new company, and so like it kind of all I think stems out of if you're listening to this right now, like anger is a great place to start from when it comes to creation in a weird way. So yeah, check out anybody that's listening right now. Look up Tortured Artist on Huffington Post and why it's not a myth. And I don't know if that's, at all resonating with you, but you know what I mean? Like sometimes the greatest of art can come out of suffering, which kind of sucks, but it's also cathartic at the same point because when you're suffering, that means you can only get better.
Yeah, I think that the cathartic thing is so important and not, I feel like I went to school for design, so I went to school with a lot of artists, and sometimes they would use the suffering artist thing as a crutch, like, oh, I can't feel better because then my art would suck. And I feel like that is just such a dangerous, like, crutch to fall into because, like, yeah, there can be some amazing art that comes out of pain, but you don't necessarily have to be feeling it at the time, or you don't have to be suffering in order to create something magnificent. So I think that it's important to keep in mind, like, yeah, beautiful art can come out of suffering, but then it's not like if there's no requirement, right? Like you can do something extraordinary and enjoy the benefits of it and not be suffering, because I feel like for artists that is just such a dangerous thing, and it's so common. Like people will be like, oh no, I can't make money because then my art will be like not pure or whatever like that. And I'm like, no, like if you don't make money, you don't survive, and then you can't make art because you're not surviving. So I think that it's such a fine line between finding what is authentic to you and cathartic, and also something that fills your soul and your bank account as well, like, and not falling into the trap of like, I must suffer and I must scrape by just because I'm an artist.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that up. I didn't mean to go down that route at all.
Oh no, 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 it's just
Um,
I've seen it so much and I'm like, oh no, we can't do that.
no, no, totally, absolutely. And I think everyone has their own way. Like if you want to keep feeling bad about yourself, go do it. Here, I'm giving you permission right now. But I think it feels really good to be good and feel good about yourself. So
It does feel good
try
to feel good.
try that too. Like I promise you that your great art can come out of really great things too. And when it happens, you go, yeah, I don't ever want to live that starving artist, painful, suffering sort of thing ever again in my life.
It's pretty good on the other side when you're not feeling so dumpy, I gotta say.
It is. It is. I definitely love this question because I'm always excited to see how people answer it. But what is a recent blessing in disguise for you?
Oh, that's a great question. And I absolutely love this question. I sort of use that in copywriting all the time. Um, I would say like I didn't, like I was saying, I didn't think that I would be working for anyone ever again. Like I just wanted to have my own business and that was it. But like when I was given this opportunity and I wrote out a T chart. So as I was saying before, I definitely write things in order to think through them. And I wrote out a T chart of the pros and the cons, and the pros list was like 5 times bigger than the cons list. And the cons list was definitely like seriously trying to be a con, but wasn't really. So I think that like joining forces with this company has just been such an amazing experience, and not one that I ever saw coming. And if you told me before, like, oh, you would be working for someone else, I'd be like, there's no way I would do that, blah, 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 blah. But in the end, it was just like, it was such a perfect fit. I couldn't ask for anything more at this point. Like, it really was a blessing in disguise, and one that I wouldn't have thought would be coming.
That is so cool. That is so cool. I just love how those happy accidents sort of fall into our lap And I try my hardest to live by this quote because I just know it's so true. I don't know if you've ever heard of what's it called? Also now I'm having a brain fart. Oh, it's called the uh the Great Hero's Journey. Have you ever heard of Hero's Journey?
Oh yeah, like the hero meets a guide, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Joseph Campbell has that quote where he says, sometimes we have to let go of the life that we have planned to live the life that we were meant to live. And
Yeah.
so I think that that's all of a sudden like just hits me right now of like that happens all the time in our life where we make these plans and we get so obsessed over it when we just gotta sometimes be flexible and let it go.
I think that's 100% true. And sometimes looking at there's that like sort of, I don't want to say it's a law of attraction, but there's like that idea behind law of attraction where it's like, only focus on the end goal. Don't get so caught up in how that actually happens. Like just keep focused on what you actually want, and it'll come together in weird ways. And I think that's absolutely true. Like, you think you're making the best decision at the time and thinking like, okay, this is probably how it's going to come true, but then weird things happen and you're like, there's a totally other way I can do this. That's way easier and I didn't even see it. So, yeah, like you said, just being open to those opportunities, like you would miss so much if you just were so focused and not open to at least seeing other sides.
Mm, I love that. I love that. I just got two more questions and then I'll let you go, okay?
Sounds good.
Awesome. So if you had 3 minutes to record anything you think your family, your loved ones, your friends, and anyone else out in the world could listen to every single day of from Katie Momo because she's no longer here, what would you want to include in those 3 minutes?
Oh my gosh, that is so hard. I would have to tell my parents just what an incredible impact they made on me. Like, it's crazy when you have people who just like blindly support you through the stupid crap that you go through in life that just makes no sense. And yet somehow they still believe in you. Like, how crazy is that? Like, I know that most parents are like that, but my parents have just been the most incredible force in my life. And they're so out of the box. And I think that for me was just like the biggest saving grace because I'm so not an in the box person that if I had had to grow up in an environment that, was really rigid or like had super like normal expectations, I would say, for life, I would have been on such a bad track. But I am so insanely blessed to have the parents that I do. And like, I would just need to tell them that every day. If I wasn't there to tell them, they would have to know.
That's so beautiful. I'm sorry.
I
That's
know. I'm
really
like, I
beautiful.
don't want to cry on a
Mhm.
podcast.
No, actually, we try to cry on this podcast because it means that you're just being vulnerable, and I'm so sick of people just pretending that everything's good all the time, and it's not like that's why I hate social media and I love social media at the same time. But
Don't
I
worry,
just
I'm
see too
tearing up over
many.
here, man.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
intense.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much for saying that. I think that speaks volumes of who Katie Momo is as a person and who's left impact in her life and what kind of impact she wants to leave this world, which is incredible. Sometimes having little moments like that, if you're listening right now to yourself and you feel like you don't know where to start because you do want to get out of your job, maybe record something like that and that'll give you a key in having an end goal in mind and kind of going towards that. And it might be a little scary to do it. And if it's scary, then follow it even closer. I don't know, just add an idea.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
think I think that's amazing advice. Like, when they say like when something triggers you, whether it's like you're going to cry, or if something pisses you off or makes you feel insanely happy, that's leading the way. Like sometimes the things that piss you off the most are actually a really good compass for saying like, hey, I need to head away from that. Or why is that pissing me off so much? And I think it can really help sort of set you in the right direction, but you need to sort of dig down to find those like those emotional touch points, whatever they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess last question. I hate to say last question just because I would love to talk to you for hours more. But I have to ask it. So I believe that scratching your own itch is by scratching your curiosity and being curious about things. What is Katie Momo currently very curious about and she's excited to scratch?
That's a good question. I think I'm trying to figure that out, which is what I've been working on sort of the past few days in the back of my mind. Like I was saying, how I really want to find some other ways to give back. And like, there's so many things that you look around in the world, you're like, I just hate that people go hungry. Or like, I'm in Canada, which is really, really cold right now. And it's just the beginning of winter. And it just like breaks my heart to see people who are outside and they're cold and have no place to go home to. And then on the other side of it, then it also drives me crazy that I think loneliness is a big problem in our day and age, even though, like you said, we're connected all the time, we've got social media. So like there's so many causes that I feel insanely passionate about, and there's only so much time that you can do with time that you have, but trying to find a way to make that better for people. And I'm not exactly sure how that's going to look like in the end, because I'm just sort of exploring ideas, but trying to think of how to like, connect people together in like a positive way. Like, is there a way that we could utilize people who want to connect and meet new people and hang out and use that as a leverage to help, make something for other people, whether that's food or, warm clothing or something like that. I'm not sure how it's going to end up, but I'm excited to sort of walk down this road and just see if there's anything that I can do to help move that forward. So we'll see what happens. I don't know yet.
Well, we'll touch base and we'll hold you accountable and see what you did and what changes you make. And I believe, based off of what you just said during this interview, that no matter what path you take, it will be the right one. Because you're setting it up. Like you're just such a kind person and so nice for reaching out to all of us that are trying to create a life that's worth living. And it could be through copywriting, and I totally believe it can be for a lot of people. And it's not as I mean, it's not easy, but it's not as complex as people think it is.
Yeah, and I think that's true for so many things too. If you have a curiosity about something, just explore it. You're not saying that you're dedicating yourself to it, but just try it out and see if it sort of fulfills something in you. And I think that that's always the way to approach it. Just try it out. Don't commit. Just give it an experimental shot.
Experimental shot. I love it. I love it. Oh God, that's awesome. So guys, you've been hanging out with Katie, Momo, and myself today. And if you want to reach out to Katie or myself, please do. But Katie, where can they find you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, probably my most hangout place would be on Facebook. So you can come over to Facebook, and then I think it's /hello Katie Momo. Or you can always go check out my blog because it's fairly regularly updated at thecopypro.com. And if you want to be a copywriter, there's definitely some good tips on there. If you want um, to grow your business, I've definitely got lots of advice for you on there. But what's funny is I've even had people who like just friends who aren't related to business at all, and they've gone on my blog and they're like, "Wow, the writing advice you gave really helped me." So, and help them sort of explore some of their inner challenges as well. So it's really cool to hear that. So yeah, go on over and see if there's anything that would help you.
That is so awesome. Thank you so much for giving us that awesome, awesome free content. Guys, we live in a world where we can just go on someone's page for free, but I want you to hold yourself accountable and actually really listen and really hear the stuff that she's putting out on that blog or website, and not just have it as like another blog or website, but to really listen to it and welcome it into your life and really go for it and try it out. And I think that's why a lot of us fail, is because there's no skin in the game. Like, put some skin in the game. Really ask yourself, like, do I want to change my freaking life and get myself out of depression? Like, do I want to stop being anxietal about stuff because I'm worried about the future? Uh, just be more mindful about it. I'm getting passionate about it because I myself do the same thing. I'm like, okay, this is free. I can just kind of take it seriously and do 5,000 other things while I'm reading this, but really, like, sit down and actually go for it.
I love
And I
it.
think Katie
It's
would
being
agree.
intentional about the change you want to see, because, like you said, it's not easy, but you've got your whole life ahead of you. It's so worth it, you know? You've got to do
Yeah.
something to make it better. Because hey, I've been there. I was just like, this sucks. Can't wait to get out, and I just trudged away. But the trudging made everything just so much better.
Mm. Oh, I love to hear that. Yeah, the trudging does make everything feel way better because you'll then be able to go, okay, I went through it.
Yep.
Awesome.
Oh,
Uh,
it's good. Keep going.
it's good. Keep going. So if you heard any awesome quotable tips from myself or Katie, please don't be shy and share them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of that stuff, because once you do that, I promise you, just starting that habit alone will get you thinking in this mindset of the true change that you want to make in your life. And it'll just put it out in the ethos, and you will then go, "Oh, that's why I started this in the first place, because of this." Sometimes, yeah, we need to look at the end goal, but we need to remind ourselves why we even started.
That
So,
is so
with
true.
that,
You
yeah,
give great
right.
advice, man.
Uh,
This is an amazing
I
podcast.
don't. Oh, nuh-uh. Don't say that. Don't say that. You made this podcast amazing. So thank you so much, Katie, for joining me today.
You have a great day. It was wonderful to talk to you. And for everyone who wants to
Yeah.
come say hi, please come say hi on Facebook. I'd love to hear from you.
Please, if you want to like rock your socks off, check out our website. It's hilarious. It is so funny. I just caught myself saying rock your socks off, so I kind of feel
That's
a
good. I'm not
little
wearing any
weird
socks either.
saying that. I'm not either.
Yay, no
Oh
sock
god.
party.
Yeah. Nice. All right, guys, we'll leave it off there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Bye.
Bye. All right. All right, guys, there's another episode of Scratch Your Own Itch with Katie Momo and I. Oh God, that was an amazing conversation. I'm so happy that this person came on the show. Katie is a funny, amazing, incredibly daring person. She took so much time just after the interview to talk to me more about copywriting, because it's just some area in which I'm trying to actually scratch because I'm just super curious about it. But guys, I want to say thank you so much for just supporting the show by listening. If you want to go above and beyond, you could definitely hit that subscribe button and be notified every single time a show comes out. And I'm really going to ask you, I know it's hard, it's going above and beyond, but if you could please leave a review on iTunes, just scroll down and go to the reviews area. That helps the show reach a little bit more of an audience that needs to be a little less alone. You know what I mean? That's why I'm doing this show, is to constantly make people feel less alone. And we have a lot of thoughts and we're just not talking about them. And this show comprised of not only Katie's thoughts that she's had about her work life, but also just how she got out of the 9 to 5 and actually doing something that she loves to do for someone else. And so it's a unique way of making work happen for you, in which you actually find to be very, very purposeful. So I just want to say thanks, though, again, for always tuning in. And don't ever forget, you matter. And you matter.